Let's turn to that story now, Nigeria, where it's being reported that ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu has a definitive lead in the presidential election. That, according to a Reuters tally of provisional results from all 36 states. But opposition parties there are calling for the election to be cancelled. They allege fraud after technical problems in the new electronic voting system. We'll come on to that in just a moment, but first let's have a look at the results as they stand. The governing party candidate, Bola Tinubu, has a clear lead with around 35% of the counted votes. His main rival, Atiku Abubakar from the People's Democratic Party, has nearly 30%. And Labour's Peter Obi, he trails on 26%, though he has caused upset by defeating Mr Tinubu in the biggest city, Lagos. But, as we mentioned, the opposition parties are now calling for the election to be cancelled over what they say is voter fraud in the new electronic polling system. Votes there are collated in each of Nigeria's 36 states before the count is transmitted to the Electoral Commission's tallying centre. But delays slowed the uploading of the results to the official website. That was meant to promote transparency. Well, the Independent National Electoral Commission denies any fraud. Let's hear now from the opposition Labour Party.
And this election is not free, fair and credible. It's clear to all Nigerians that this election is already compromised. And therefore, if that is the wishes and aspirations of every Nigerian and is the general opinion, the best thing to do is for us to correct it and get it right.
Well, many Nigerians aren't happy with those results, and it's feared there could be unrest in opposition-supporting parts of the country. Well, this is the police presence outside the Electoral Commission headquarters in the southern city of Port Harcourt, where Labour Party candidate Peter Obi won the most votes. Let's hear from voters there.
That's what I'm saying. This is so close to depressing. It's close to depressing. People are crying. People are crying that even when we came out to vote, to participate in this election with everything that makes us us, and then eventually you go back and then you manipulate and you want to do whatever you want to do, then what are you telling us?
I'm angry, I'm pained, I'm just sad because it's not fair actually. This has been going on for all the elections since while growing up. What I've been hearing or what I've been seeing, they're always rigging, always changing results.
Let's get more now from the BBC's Peter Akwache on what the opposition parties are now demanding.
Those three parties coming together to say that these elections were a sham, they were a fraud, that there was a lot of vote rigging involved, and that the elections should be cancelled. They want the country's chief electoral officer to step down, and then they called on President Muhammadu Buhari to personally intervene in the crisis.
So that's what the opposition wants. Our correspondent Mayeni Jones has been speaking to the Nigerian public in Lagos about
We went out into the streets this morning and we're speaking to an impassioned group of men who were talking politics over the newspapers, and all of them supported a different candidate. But one thing they all agreed on was that they were really unhappy with the way the election had been handled by the National Electoral Commission. All of them said they wish they'd been able to see the results as promised immediately after polls closed and the votes were counted. They were incredibly suspicious by the fact that that didn't happen.
So there is suspicion from the public and claims of fraud from the opposition parties. But election observers say that despite a number of problems, the vote, for the most part, has served its purpose.
Notwithstanding the shortcomings identified in these elections, Nigerians were largely accorded the right to vote. And we trust that the final stages of collation and announcement of results will continue to be handled in a transparent, a peaceful and credible manner.
Well, let's compare what's happened to the last presidential election. That was in 2019, when this man, Nigeria's current president, Muhammadu Buhari, won with 56% of the vote. One big difference this time is the size of the electorate. There are 10 million more registered voters this year. The second change is that the two main parties have now been challenged by a third credible contender, that's Peter Obi, who has energised voters with his messages of accountability. Now, the opposition People's Democratic Party also rejected the result in 2019. They accused the ruling party then of tampering with the vote. So let's hear from some voters in the east of the country.
The best election of this Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We vote very peaceful, no problem, nothing. But we are praying for God to do His own will. That's our own prayer. We already do everything and leave it to God.
Everything is in peaceful manner. Though I have selected my own, but I don't know. For my own single, I cannot say my candidate will win. But any person who wins the election, I'm very happy.
Well, many Nigerians are asking what could happen next. Well, it's not certain, but many are now expecting the final result to be announced on Wednesday. Monitors say protests may happen, especially in the south and southeast of the country, and in Lagos, which backed Peter Obi. Well, once a result is declared, candidates will have 14 days to file any challenge. And the new government must be inaugurated by the 29th of May. Let's hear again from Peter Okwache.
We've had no response yet to this from the Electoral Commission. I mean, they're going on with the counting, as I mentioned earlier on. The ruling APC, they came out with their own counter press conference to say that what these three parties are asking for is illegal and should not happen. What happens next, we're not quite sure. I mean, these elections have cost Nigeria almost $700 million. And I doubt very much with the cost of living crisis going on in the country right now, whether they can actually afford to have another election.
So why is this election so important? Well, Nigeria faces a lot of serious challenges. There's growing insecurity, deep poverty, and a corrupt political class. This moment is genuinely seen as a turning point, with hopes that a credible poll could change the country for the better. Nigeria is also important regionally. It has Africa's largest population and largest economy. Some analysts say a good election in Nigeria would revitalise the hopes of democratic reformers in other countries. Well, Osai Ojigo is the director of Amnesty International Nigeria. She joins me now from Abuja. Thank you for being with us. And talk to me about the work that you are doing there. Is there any evidence that this election is not fair and not credible?
Thanks so much for having me. Amnesty International has been monitoring potential hotspots throughout this electoral process. While we are not actively on the ground monitoring the elections, we have received reports of violence, late arrival of INEC officials at the kickstart of the elections on Saturday, and general anxiety and worry and anger because the results are not reflecting some of people's expectations, which they were hoping to see, one of which was the electronic transmission of results directly from the polling units to INEC servers. I think a lot would have been helped if INEC itself had come out clearly to state what the processes are and to communicate what their challenges with regards to the results collation.
We touched on the fact this election was being seen as vital in restoring credibility, restoring faith in the political system, but also to give hope to Nigeria that it can help resolve some of the problems that it faces. How convinced, how confident are you that it can do that, given the controversy surrounding this election?
Well, in the first instance, this was one electoral process that has been quite energized by young people. So I think that is one plus. The fact that many people were first-time voters in this election shows people's hope and aspirations in terms of a better Nigeria. But with recent happenings, even discontent, it could quickly lead to even further problems. Like today in Abuja, there were protesters in front of the International Conference Center where INEC, that's Independent National Electoral Commission, has its main collation center. And there were protesters there yesterday as well. So people are eagerly waiting for the results. And the fear is if people feel that their preferred candidate has not won, or that the votes that have been counted do not reflect their own opinion in terms of how these votes should have gone, there could potentially be more protests across Nigeria.
Osai Ojigo for Amnesty International, thank you for being with us on Outside Source.
Thanks for having me.